Hello, how you doing? I don't know why I've even asked you that. You don't know. You don't. I don't know how you're doing. I'm back. Come back for another video. Um, it is Sunday evening, and it's a week after the World Cup. A week in which I have left the house and caught some sun, seen the outdoors, and realised that there is a world outside of football. Yes, it's true. There is a world outside of football. Um, but I'm going to spend time in this video talking about football because I was going to say it's all I know, but it's all I'm willing to talk about and share with you at this moment. There may be other opportunities. I do other things. I talk about other things. Anyway, let's get on with it. The purpose of this video is really to reflect a week on from the World Cup, and to look at the traditional top teams in UEFA in Europe. Well, that is to say, the traditional top nations in UEFA. Um, Obviously, why I'm saying that is because I've not included Switzerland or Austria or Bosnia or Norway. I'm talking about the sort of, again, the big nations who have, well, for one reason or another, dominated either the trophies or the narrative of European football in international context over the last 40, 50 years, what have you. So starting with, and I've written it down so I don't forget, France, Spain, Germany, Portugal, Netherlands, Italy, and briefly England. Briefly England. Um, so I said I wouldn't need my glasses for this, but I do. So I'll whop them on, put my readers on. So I'll start with France, I think, because that was the first one that I wrote down. France are, well, I mean, they were superb, weren't they, in the World Cup? Superbly entertaining. So what happens with them next? It feels as though a lot of it depends on what the new coach does. I think it's Zidane who might be joining. I don't know. I'm not sure it's been announced yet. If that's the case, then there could be a lot of vibes going on with France. They got a terrific program. They got some fantastic players. They keep producing fantastic players. And also, although their league is not in great shape, they do have a very, very, very strong club within that league, much like the Bundesliga has Bayern Munich. And I think that helps to drive the development of French players. But I mean, as good as Mbappe, Doué, as good as Dembele is, as good as Elise is, I mean, they do still perhaps have deficiencies further back that I think might prevent them from going one step further, getting to a final, winning a final, particularly in view of the fact of the next team that I'm going to talk about, which is Spain. Spain appear to have the lot, don't they? Again, we talked about it quite a bit in the last video that I did. Spain are pretty much complete in every department. They've got answers for every department, but they also, I think, have that kind of unity and togetherness. They have a completeness, a coherence of tactics that goes from generation to generation. I mean, their coach managed the youth teams, under 19, under 21s, I think. De La Fuente, he's come through the system as much as some of those players have done. And they just look like the finished article in a way that I think few football teams, international football teams, ever do. Looks like there's been a program, and it looks like they've stuck to it and they've made it work. Could they be more entertaining to watch? Yes, but yeah, there's no arguing with their process. There's no arguing with their ability, and there's no arguing with the quality of their players. And yeah, and I guess in Yamal, they've got a potential Ballon d'Or winner and a world class player. So they are going to be the team to beat. They're hosting the World Cup in 4 years' time, or co-hosting the World Cup in 4 years' time. It's going to be really difficult to imagine anyone beating them. I think the only team that I think that can beat them is themselves. They failed to show up. So for them, there's the Nations League, there's the Euros, then there's the World Cup, and at the moment, it doesn't feel like anyone can stop them. But I remember thinking that in 2012 when they won the Euros after having won the World Cup in 2010, and then they get knocked out in 2014. So I mean, you don't know. You don't know what else anyone else has got to say. Um, but it feels as though Spain are very much the team to beat, and we are all living in their world right now. Germany, yeah, Germany, and I think to a degree the Netherlands as well. Um, I mean, like the Netherlands, you know, Germany has defined, I think, an awful lot of its sort of like national character through football. Since not long after the end of the Second World War, really. This has been a nation that has adopted certain characteristics of how it plays. Um, Went through a crisis in the late 90s, early 2000s, came through that crisis, developed a fantastic squad of players, won the World Cup in 2014, and there was perhaps a suggestion that, you know, they would go on to win more trophies. That didn't happen. And then they seem to have just gone on into this decline that, you know, on the outside is difficult to explain, but on the inside, I think a lot of people just feel that there isn't really any kind of discernible playing style that people can identify as German. And they're missing, yeah, people say they're missing strikers, they're missing decent centre halves. They've come to over rely on older players to an extent where they ended up bringing, Manuel Neuer, who's what, 112. I mean, like bringing him along. Um, Musiala's perhaps not developed at the pace that he might have done. He had that really bad injury, and that has set him back. And they could really do with the striker, couldn't they? They could really do with the striker. So Jurgen Klopp is now in charge, and he's got a much broader remit. He's not just going to be picks the team, wins games. That's the plan. The plan for Jurgen is he's got a look at the situation and try and put forward a way for Germany to, be Germany again. Bring back that kind of ruthless, never say die spirit that they say has deserted them. I worry about stuff like that. I worry about it when people sort of like say, "Oh, well, the Germans just don't play like Germany anymore," as if we should all just go back to the 1970s and 80s. Um, I don't. I worry about that because that imbues, nationalist characteristics on football players, and I'm not sure that's fair. But it is quite clear that something needs to be done. They're not up to it. They've not been up to it for some time now. And so there needs to be a change, a Das Reboot 3. Or rather, no, that's a Das Reboot 2, isn't it? Sorry. So they need one of those. And we'll see what happens. My feeling is that Klopp will probably go in search of the players that he needs to fill in the positions that he needs to fill in, even if they're not necessarily international class. I think will give them a chance. I also think we'll probably see the promotion of Dennis Undav as well because people like him and he's a really good player. Um, I will. I was going to talk about Portugal next, but actually, I will then move across to Netherlands now because I feel that there's a similar situation going on here, although I think it's worse for them. Again, a football culture, a nation that expressed itself and expressed its nationhood in a relatively non-toxic way, throughout the 1970s and 80s. This is the football of total football. This is the country of total football. This is Cruyffian football. And that identity has just eroded over the decades. Part of that, in my opinion, is the decline of the Eredivisie as a league, the decline of the traditional powerhouses, PSV and Ajax, who just don't have the money and can't keep hold of the players long enough to be able to compete. And I feel as though what's happening is that Dutch football has just ended up becoming an export, and those Dutch players are defined by the countries that they play their football in. rather than necessarily being specifically Dutch. I think there's a problem there. There also seems to be some kind of coaching problem there. They keep hiring the same guys, and it just isn't working. And their decline is disappointing for those of us who are perhaps old school football romantics. But it's a real challenge for what the Dutch do next, what the Netherlands do next. How do they make that work? And they need to find a new way through with their new reality. Short of a billionaire coming in and buying Ajax and then developing a ridiculously, good program, winning the Champions League consistently, and just becoming another PSG, it's difficult to see what short-term solutions there are for Netherlands. I say that they'll probably win the Nations League and get to the final of the Euros. There you go. You live and die by the stuff you say on YouTube. You just do. It's just how it is. Portugal. This one's an easy one. They're much, much better than their position suggests. There's no crisis going on there. The only problem that they've got is that they are in love with Cristiano Ronaldo and they don't want to let him go. Simple as that. There's nothing more to say. I mean, could sit here and jump up and down and saying, "Oh, you got to drop him. You got to drop him. He's no good for you. He's too old. He's a has-been." All of that stuff. They're not listening. They don't care. So fine, let them crack on. One less team for the rest of us to worry about. Right? Portugal, Italy. Well, here's the thing about Italy. They've got a strong league. It's not as strong as it was. They produce good players, perhaps not as good as they were, and they've got a reason. Well, they've got an outfit, a federation. Their federation's in chaos, but feels like they've got a management crisis. Almost an administration crisis. It feels as though they just can't seem to recruit the right coaches at the right moment, and it's kind of led to this calamity. I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that it was where are we now? 26. So 5 years ago, they won the Euros. And I mean, and I'd say they were deserved winners of the Euros as well. I mean, I don't know whether or not there's that much of a crisis, or whether or not they just need some proper leadership to see them through. Feels to me like Italy could actually resolve their problems and bridge the gap a lot quicker than other clubs and other nations where it seems like the problems are more systemic. Italian football scribes and scholars may have a different view, and I would welcome your view, as I would welcome the views of everyone who is an expert in their federations, and I am not, to leave that in the comments, because obviously leaving comments is something that I encourage, because YouTube. Who else? Yeah, well, England. Okay, well, I talked about England in the last video. I'm not going to talk about them a lot more. The only thing I would say about that is I think that we're going to come to realise that taking Tuchel on was a cul-de-sac and a bit of a missed opportunity. I think we look at Spain and we look at De La Fuente, and then we ask ourselves whether or not actually we should just give Lee McCarthy this job. Anyway, we won't know the answer to these questions until we start playing football matches. The next one is in September, and it's at home to Spain in the Nations League. And as I have said in my previous video, not the previous one, the one before, I also said on the recent Sound of Football podcast, I think England need to go ahead and get to at least the final four of that competition. They need to take, but most importantly, they need to take the Nations League seriously and try and win it. That's what I think needs to happen. And then I think we can then start thinking about building our qualification campaign for the Euros. I would expect England to qualify for the Euros. But really, as co-host of that tournament, there's going to be under a lot of pressure for us to finish second in the final to Spain. Yeah. All right, then. Well, I think that was fairly whistle-stoppy. What are we talking about there? That's close to 15 minutes. That's enough, isn't it, guys? You don't want to hear much more of me going on about that, do you? No. The international season is actually, there's still more international football going on. The WAFCON has just started, if you're into your women's African football. And how would you know if you've never watched it? Apparently that's going to be on one of the Channel 4 networks. I don't know which one. It's on as we speak, but I don't see it anywhere. But anyway, there's that. But for those of us who are still following football after the World Cup, and we are legion, we are looking at transfers and all the excitement with the pre-season coming on its way, and regular football matches will be around soon enough. And I'll be back shortly to talk about them, to discuss them with you. And I love these discussions that I have with you because you don't really get to answer back and interrupt me while I'm talking, and I just love that. I just love that. But I do want you to talk to me in the comments. One, because I'm interested in what you say, and two, because of the algorithm. All right then. Until next time. Cheery bye.